To this planning committee meeting, the 7th of October 2025. I'm Councillor Phil Murphy, Chair of the committee, and Dale.
Hi, I'm Councillor Dale Rook, and I'm Vice Chair of the committee.
Andrew Jones, Head of Planning.
Philip Thomas, Development Services Manager.
Joanne Chase, Solicitor to the Planning Committee.
Richard Ray, Paralegal.
Richard Williams, Democratic Services.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll go to the agenda now. Do we have any apologies for absence, Richard?
None received, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any declarations of interest? No. Can I see anything online? No. Okay, thank you. Can we now go to the minutes of the previous meeting? Can somebody, thank you, Councillor McConnell, and thank you, Councillor Hells. The usual messages that I put forward, can everybody who's online keep their cameras on, and everybody who is in the chamber keep your cameras off? Stay in view, otherwise you won't be able to vote. Can you contact us if you have to break off? We're still not quite complete on the changes to the IT provisions in here, so hands up will still be using the taskbar. So now I'll keep an eye on the numbers on the screen. Having said that, oh yes, the other thing is there was quite lengthy late correspondence. Can everybody confirm, those online, just stick your thumbs up, that you've read the late correspondence? Everybody in here? Okay, thank you very much. Right, so we'll move on to the agenda, and for the benefit of the visitors here, we try and deal with those that have got people registered to speak first, so you don't have to hang around as long as perhaps you might. And the first one we're going to do is DM 2025-00379, which is the erection of a detached single-storey dwelling in Portskewett. And Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Hopefully the presentation is on screen now for you. Just to confirm, this is a full planning application for the erection of one 3-bedroom dwelling, and permission is also sought for 2 outbuildings incidental to the use of the dwelling, as well as various aspects of new and hard and soft landscaping. So just to confirm, for a point of clarity, the reason the application is presented to Planning Committee this afternoon is that the number of objections has exceeded the threshold of 5 separate households. So whilst a number of you members were on site with us yesterday, I'll just run through the slides now, which also includes some photographs, just to assist with your consideration of this. So the slide on screen you can see now, I'll refer back to later. The dark black line boundary you can see edging the settlement there is the development boundary for Portskewett, and the application site is in the sort of northerly portion of that. But the next slide will provide a detailed positioning of the site, which is located to the rear of the properties along Main Road, Portskewett, and would be accessed by an existing track between numbers 27 and 29 Main Road, Portskewett. So the next slide then. So this is the proposed floor plan, and as I said, this would be a 3-bedroom property. It's also worth noting that there would also be an integral 3-bay garage, which you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. So the next 3 slides now will just run through the proposed elevations. So in terms of the finishes there, you might not be able to pick up on those small annotations. It would be finished with a slate roof, untreated vertical timber cladding, and Welsh slate detailing as well to the walls. You'll also note on that drawing and elevation the presence of solar PV panels. If we just move through the other slides, you'll see that's the sort of side elevations of the proposal. And on the final slide there, you'll note on the top elevation there the presence of an air source heat pump, which is proposed also. So just turning then to the next slide, as I mentioned, there are 2 outbuildings also proposed that would be incidental to the use of the dwelling. This here on the slide now you can see is to store garden equipment. And the next slide then will show this is a small timber cabin, again for incidental use and enjoyment of the dwelling, and this would be sited on the more eastern part of the site. So just some photographs which will assist particularly with context. This is a view looking up the track, the entrance track. You can see the neighbouring property number 27, Main Road, Portskeurt, on the left-hand side of your screen. The next photograph then, I believe, is looking back down the track. And you can see there the entrance gates that close to the edge of the track, which would be removed. And then we've got some photographs looking within the site. So that's looking effectively north up into the site. You can see the sloping topography of the site, which slopes gradually down as you go back down towards Main Road. That's a view there looking, it's effectively looking along the western boundary of the site. You can see a neighbouring property in the distance there. This area here of a sort of quite well-established mature trees and other vegetation along the eastern side of the site, and that's looking back. The rear of the properties there, you can see that's stood looking almost due south towards the backs of the properties along Main Road, Portskeurt. And for those of us who were on site yesterday, this is showing the sort of approximate location of the timber outbuilding that was shown in the slide earlier. And I think that's the last of the photographs. Oh no, there's one. That's one looking back effectively from east back to the west, stood, if you were taking that photograph, where the that timber outbuilding would be sited. Okay, so in terms then, as the summary on the screen of the sort of main issues, but in terms of the considerations, as you know, your officer's report has provided a detailed assessment analysis of the key planning policies and material planning considerations. So I won't touch upon and repeat all of those issues. I'll just focus on some of the key thematic issues that have been brought about through the application process. I think always firstly, in terms of the principle of development, the first slide we saw was of the development boundary for Portskeurt. And as that slide showed, the site is within the Portskeurt development boundary, within which there is a presumption in favour of new residential development, subject to detailed planning considerations. And in terms then of what are those detailed planning considerations, with regards to design and placemaking, it is noted, and it's fairly apparent from the drawings, that owing to the size of the plot, it is large for one dwelling. Policy DES 1 sets out that to make the most efficient use of the land, the minimum net density of residential development should be 30 dwellings per hectare. However, in this case, the existing access is not considered to be a sufficient width to accommodate that level of development and that level of density. And in this situation, for this reason, a single dwelling is considered acceptable. The design of the single-storey dwelling is considered to be appropriate. It would adopt a simple form, and relative to the size of the plots and other neighbouring quality buildings, it is considered to be acceptable. There are, as those that know Portskeurt and those that were there on site yesterday, a mix of house types and sizes, including a number of single-storey properties in the vicinity, and there's quite a broad palette of materials. In addition to also that the two outbuildings we've seen on screen are both considered to be of modest scale, and would integrate into the wider landscape. And I'll come on to that point later on. In terms then of a really important and critical issue, material planning issue, as part of your consideration, members, is the impact of the proposal on third-party amenity. Concerns have been raised in this instance with particular regard to the use of the existing track and the increase in both pedestrian and vehicular movements. The side elevation of number 27, as was shown on the slide earlier, does have windows that face onto the track, which include habitable windows. However, it is not uncommon for drivers or indeed pedestrians to pass between houses or to hear neighbours manoeuvre their cars on and off their properties. Officers are satisfied that the proposal for one dwelling would not result in a level of activity and vehicular movement that would have an unacceptable material impact on noise and disturbance. With regards to other areas of potential disturbance, and particularly that of headlights of passing vehicular traffic, officers of the view that this would be infrequent and for very short times. However, with regards to the issue of privacy that has been raised, as stated, the presence of windows on the side elevation is certainly noted and was observed on site yesterday. However, weight must be afforded to the existing situation whereby the track can be used to access the land and further land beyond. The consideration of how the land would be used as a single dwelling must be based upon reasonable behaviour. Both pedestrians and vehicles passing number 27 would do so for a short period and of limited occurrence during a typical day. Officers, therefore, having regard to the continued use of the track outside of this planning application, do not feel on balance that the use of the track to serve a single household would not be able to evidence such harm to third-party privacy and amenity so as to withhold planning permission. In respect of privacy and amenity considerations from the dwelling itself, Section 6.6 of your officer's report does set out the distances to other dwellings, and for the reasons given in that report, the proposal in regards to the dwelling itself is not considered to fail to preserve existing levels of privacy and amenity. Another key theme and area that's been raised through the consultation exercise is that of highway safety. And as you have noted, the proposal has been subject to consultation with the Council's highways engineers, and as set out in the report, they raised no objection to the development. The existing track measures approximately 6 metres in width, which is well in excess of the width of 4.5 metres noted in the unadopted common standards for private accesses. Condition 4 requires certain works to be carried out prior to the dwelling being brought into beneficial use. Are we okay to continue? Yep. So the site itself is considered to provide adequate off-street parking and turning spaces also. It's evident that the site is certainly of sufficient size to provide that. And the access, which is over an existing footway, would also provide access to the current landowner's further land to the north of the site. The Council's highways engineer acknowledged that visibility is slightly constrained by the proximity of adjacent property boundary walls and hedgerow. However, as stated, their advice, as the relevant statutory consultee, is that subject to the conditions proposed, there are no highway safety grounds to object to the development. And finally then, in terms of landscape and biodiversity, both NRW, the Council's and our Council's in-house ecologist, as well as our tree officer, offer no objections. The application has been informed by an appropriate level of survey, and the scheme has also demonstrated the required levels of ecological enhancement. Conditions are proposed to secure not only a biodiversity construction method statement, but also a long-term management plan for the site. So having regard to the advice from those named consultees, officers are of the view that the development is acceptable, having regard to both landscape and ecological considerations. So, in conclusion, the development is considered and having regard to, say, relevant planning policies and all other relevant material considerations, the officer advises that development is considered to be acceptable. So subject to the conditions set out in the officer's report, as well as a Section 106 agreement to secure a financial contribution towards affordable housing, the application is presented to you members with a recommendation to approve.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. And we would normally go now to the ward member, but the ward member isn't with us today. And the Town and Community Council have notified us that they are prepared to recommend approval of the application, but nobody is here to discuss it with us. We have two registered people for addressing us today. The first one is Michael Taylor. And Michael, if you would like to address us, you've got 4 minutes. It's the written one. Sorry, yeah, it's the written one.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just read out this prepared statement from Mr. Taylor. I'm writing to strongly object to the planning application for the proposed single dwelling on the land behind our home at 27 Main Road, Portskewett. First and foremost, the road safety issues are a major concern. There was an accident at the junction of Wedgwood Drive near the proposed site entrance, highlighting how adding more traffic would only increase the danger for everyone due to the poor visibility. The person that had this accident, I believe, has also objected. This is not just a minor inconvenience, it's a genuine safety hazard for motorists and pedestrians that should not be overlooked. In addition, we have two windows that would overlook the access lane and pose a serious invasion of privacy for us, allowing pedestrians using the access lane to look directly into our property. We believe this aspect has not been given due consideration. We also want to emphasise the environmental impact. The local wildlife and drainage could be significantly affected by this development, and the consequences seem to have been addressed but largely ignored in the current proposal. In fact, it's more a matter of finding a way around these issues, leaning more towards the applicant. Finally, we find it concerning that the planning officer previously objected to a similar application down the road at 65 Main Road for the same safety reasons, yet is considering approval in this case. We believe the same standard should apply, and consistency in decision-making is crucial. It seems as if the planning officer in this case has some leaning towards a positive outcome in this application, and this is mirrored in the direction that this planning application has taken. This land was sold as agricultural land and is not suitable for planning and will greatly affect our quality of life. In summary, there have been 8 objections that relate to the above issues. We strongly urge you to reconsider this application in light of these significant concerns.
Thank you, Andrew. Was there any item on there that you wanted to...
Yeah, I would ordinarily come back in at this point had that been either a video recording or indeed the gentleman being present. I mean, a lot of those issues have overlapped with what I've discussed in the presentation. The one I would ordinarily come back in on is the reference there to that consistency of decision making, a consistency of approach. Reference has been made to a scheme further down Main Road, Portskewett, at number 65, which was refused by us on highway safety issues. What I would comment on that in response is that there is quite a material change in circumstances between that site and this. The site at 65 Main Road, Portskewett, that was refused would have involved a shared access that was already serving 9 existing dwellings and an agricultural access. That is quite a significant, materially different situation to that which I've outlined here in this presentation and this application. So in summary, the numbers of dwellings and the intensity and issues of existing access were significantly different. So I respectfully would suggest that's not a like-for-like comparison based on that scenario. So that's all I'd observe in terms of responding to that. So the other points that have been raised, I have covered in the presentation, but obviously if members through the course of the debate have further queries, then please hope we can assist.
Thank you, Andrew. Mr. Vivian Danks is next. Mr. Danks, you'd like to address this? You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for allowing me the time to address you. All I want to re-emphasise is when we took this land on, we recognised that we may legally own the land, but realistically in a village in South Wales, you're only stewards of that land. And we've tried to work really hard in the 8 months of this process to try and balance the needs for a disabled person for which this house is specifically being built for, and maintaining a very strong environmental bias in the design. Hence, as Mr. Jones highlighted, we've worked long and hard with biodiversity, putting plans back and forth, trying to give the maximum whilst maintaining the balance for a disabled access. As to the road, the specific points raised, that road was first instated as access to Heston Brake in 1967. Heston Brake subsequently got an alternative access to their house, but since 45 years before that extension was approved to number 27, that has been regular access for both agricultural vehicles. It's within the title of the land that agricultural vehicles are allowed access 24/7, and pedestrian access still in place for Heston Brake, only with the vehicle access being removed when number 27 was last sold. So it is an existing road access, not a piece of track we're trying to get on. The only last point I'd like to add, unless anybody's got any questions for me, is it is not agricultural land. It was a field being used to feed horses. It's never been part of a recognised agricultural land package or land parcel. That's all I have to say, gentlefolk.
Thank you very much. We've got nobody else registered to speak on this, so I'll go to members now. Any members want to make any points at this stage? Councillor Bryn.
Diolch. There were comments regarding bat roots in the trees and ecological recommendation that are sensitive layouts designed that avoids spill onto the trees and the hedgerows on the site. And I was wondering if there was a reason why there wasn't a planning condition to secure that going forward permanently. Diolch.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, the conditions in respect of ecology have followed the advice of our in-house ecologists. It is within members' gift, if they were minded to approve the application, to apply a condition in respect of external lighting. That is quite a common condition. That's no external lighting to be installed unless details are submitted to and approved in writing by us as the local planning authority. That's not an uncommon planning condition. The reason it's not included in the suite of conditions is that they have followed the advice of our own in-house college. But that's for you as members to make a decision on whether you feel that condition is required on top of that.
Okay, we'll probably come back to that after everybody else has spoken. Councillor Howells.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Andrew, for the presentation. Just with regards the road and the entrance itself, so do we know what the speed limit is on that road, and are they widening that area at all, particularly by the pavement where it enters onto the road? And I did notice there's two wooden structures in the garden that's going, and there was detailed plans for the garden shed. However, I didn't see any details for the other wooden building, and I just wondered, was that necessary to have the dimensions of it? I did notice that it had potential for a chimney on that building. Is it, or are either of them connected to the main drainage there as well? So are they more permanent wooden structure or just sort of utility buildings? Just those two items, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Howells. Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, if it is a mains drained area, in terms of if a connection was required, I mean, that process is normally managed through the building control process, but if there was a concern that further details were needed of that secondary timber building, again, that could be a condition that full details are submitted to and approved in writing prior to its construction. I think as officers we felt there was sufficient information between the drawing that's been seen in the presentation and in the detailed site layout drawing to make an informed decision. I say their purpose and their use would be anything that's incidental to the use of the dwelling. But again, that's within members' gift. I'll just check if I can come back to you again on that drawing point. I'll just check with the colleague whether we don't have any further information on those drawings. In terms of the access, I mean, there are some small works done to the entranceway that includes removing the gate within that opening width, which is considered to be, say, by Highways, to be sufficient to provide access for the new dwelling. They do note that there's features on neighbouring land that could potentially cause some small obstruction. But I suppose the key point is that notwithstanding those, they feel that is a safe access onto Main Road, which I believe, unless there's local knowledge to the contrary, that would be a 20-mile-an-hour zone. That arrangement for that one additional unit is acceptable. But if members have any other further points, I'm just going to clarify with a colleague now that we may actually already have those additional drawings that you've pointed out, and that they may have just simply not been included in this presentation, as there are quite a suite of drawings already in the presentation. So I'll come back in a moment on that point.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Councillor Easton.
Hello, yes, good afternoon. Yes, it's a 20-mile-an-hour road. It's a very busy road, but traffic parks on either side of the road. I won't say indiscriminately, but there doesn't seem to be any consistency how they park. Regarding access to this property, I would assume that you drive in and drive out in the forward gear. That's an assumption, but can that be put in the conditions that there would be no reversing out? And in terms of the property number 27, which was some concern about access through their windows, is there any facility whereby some form of shading could be, or shielding could be put in place? Is it practical? I'm not quite sure, but it's just a thought. But it's a 20-mile-an-hour road, very busy road, parking on either side. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Easton, for that confirmation. Glad I got that right. In terms, I'll just quickly look back to the point that Councillor Howells had raised. We do have the additional drawings for that, the timber outbuilding. Apologies. They say for the succinctness of the presentation, they weren't included, but the case officer has confirmed we do have those. Turning back then to Councillor Easton's point, no, we wouldn't be able to condition that vehicles can't reverse out. That wouldn't be a reasonable or enforceable condition. What we need to ensure as the decision maker is that the site has sufficient room to enable a vehicle to park and turn within the site and then leave in a forward gear, which, as you can see from the plans, that is readily achievable. But it wouldn't be a condition requiring that wouldn't meet the condition circular, and I wouldn't advocate that members be minded to include a condition on that basis. Turning then to the point of some form of screening along where the access crosses the side of number 27. That has been considered, but I think it's a balance, and as officers we consider that some sort of permanent fixed screening in that location could itself be quite could block light to that window in such close proximity, could have an impact all of itself. Balance then, say, with the low frequency and short periods of time that a vehicle and pedestrians would be crossing, officers' view on balance was that as a form of mitigation wouldn't be required and could in itself cause its own issues. So that's why it's not proposed to you.
Can I come back on this access? This access, that is a condition which has been imposed in my ward, where you cannot reverse onto the main road, which is not the same road, but it's the same busy section of road. And the condition by Highways was that you cannot reverse out, full stop.
Well, Yeah, I'm not aware of that specific case, or it might be that a highways colleague has recommended that condition. But my advice to members would be that such a condition would not meet the advice set out in Welsh Government's condition circular. So that the key point is that the site itself can demonstrate that it has sufficient room for the appropriate level of parking and manoeuvring to enable a vehicle to leave in a forward gear, and but that is the test rather than an additional condition that would not be enforceable.
Okay, thank you for that. And Councillor Webb.
Yes, thank you. Once again, a very interesting site visit. It was good to see it. It's difficult to visualise it from the plans in front of us today, but I was glad that I was able to visit the site yesterday. Thank you. A very full and detailed report, I have to say. Thank you, officers. Just with regard to the access, surely for looking after the horses, looking at the vehicles in relation to looking after the horses, were bigger than an ordinary vehicle going in and out of the site. And I would say that common sense would make sure that you didn't go in a reverse reversing out onto this road. And I would like to, in that case, please, Chair, to recommend approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. Do we have anybody else who wishes to speak on this one? I've got nobody on my screen. Okay. Councillor Bryn, you coming back?
I was going to say I'm happy to second that with the lighting condition, if everybody else is happy with that.
Can I have a show of thumbs for anybody who would like the lighting condition to be added? Yes, that's pretty well covered that. Councillor Rook. Yeah, can we just... the solicitor wants us to just confirm that. Can you go to the hands up function on your taskbar and press that, please, if you want to approve it.
Chair, I understand I can't vote.
No, that's okay. Majority, yeah. Yeah, we have a clear majority, so don't worry if you can't vote. Right. Under those circumstances, then we have a proposer and a seconder for approval. Richard, can we have the function up, please? Can you vote now, please?
Excuse me, Chair. I'm not getting the voting function, and I'm not getting the chat, but it is coming up here. So,
for the benefit of those at home, Richard's just checking that. Can everybody, if they can, switch their hands that function off, please?
Councillor Riley, I can take your vote. It's 4. Okay. So it's been approved. It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And we'll now move on to the item 4.3 on the agenda, which is DM 2025-00831, which is a modification of condition 2
Chair.
relating to...
Can I just, Councillor Riley, Councillor Wright would like to be present. Can I just leave the chamber to catch her? Thank you.
I was expecting her.
Are we delaying?
Yeah, we'll just delay while Councillor Wright comes into the room. Okay, we'll continue. Welcome, Councillor Wright. So yes, 00831, modification of a condition relating to the opening hours in the outside part of the restaurant in Lion Street and Phil.
Thank you, Chair. So this is application, this property is known as the Dugout, and it's on Lion Street in the centre of Abergavenny. It's opposite the Morrison supermarket, and as you see in the slide there, it's a bit out of date there, it still shows the cattle market. It's obviously the Morrison's store and car park there. The building forms part of a terrace, as you can see there, adjoining a private dwelling to the east and a hairdressing business with flats above to the immediate west or northwest. Just running through the slides here, that's the property. You can see the car park to the supermarket now. The rear shows these sort of long gardens or curtilages behind the properties there, some of which is treed, wooded, and then it backs onto the brewery yard car park to the north, as shown there, and the cattle market, the market hall building and the restaurant at the back of the market. So the property benefits from consent to be used as a cafe bar with planning conditions restricting opening hours. Aside from the planning permission, the premises has a licence that includes the sale of alcohol between 8 a.m. and midnight, Monday to Sunday, and live music between 8 a.m. till 11 o'clock, Monday to Sunday. The licence covers both the inside and outside areas of the premises. The site is within the conservation area of the town, but the property is not a listed building. The application seeks modification of Condition 2 of a 2024 planning permission, which was a retrospective application for a new patio and turfed area at the rear. Turfed area wouldn't have needed permission, but it's the patio, hard surfacing and trellis along the wall in relation to the neighbouring property, and that would have needed planning permission. The condition as imposed restricts the use of that garden area so that it finishes Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 5 p.m, other times slightly later, for instance Thursdays 9 p.m, Fridays and Saturdays 10 p.m, and Sundays also 9 p.m. The proposed revised opening hours are as follows. Then the garden would then be open on a Monday and then a Tuesday and a Wednesday till 9 p.m. in the evening, and no changes to the hours of operation on the other days when it can stay open until either 9 or 10 p.m. Are proposed. The opening hours of the internal area of the cafe bar covered by the planning permission 23/16/14 are 9 a.m. till 11 p.m, Sunday to Thursday, 9 a.m. to midnight Fridays and Saturdays. But this application relates purely to the outside area only. Just looking at that's the slide showing the current layout at the back. That's looking back towards the brewery yard car park at the rear, and that's the inside. And then that's a slide summarising the issues. So as demonstrated by the many comments received in support of the application, the cafe bar is a well-used community facility, and the success of the business and reported contribution to help with mental health and well-being is positive. However, this does need to be balanced against the impact that additional opening hours will have on local residential amenity. There are conflicting representations made by neighbouring occupiers about the level of unwanted noise being generated by the use of the outside area, with the occupiers of the immediate property raising concerns about noise from the garden, while those at flats nearby report very little or no noise disturbance at all. The configuration of the buildings, the positioning of windows and how individuals use their homes will all have an impact on how noise from the cafe bar is perceived, and therefore all comments need to be carefully considered. It is accepted that the proposed extended opening hours, with the proposed extended opening hours, there is the potential for longer periods of noise from the customers, adversely impacting the occupiers of nearby residential accommodation, particularly the immediate neighbour on Lion Street. This will be the most significant during later evening hours on summer weekdays when the cafe bar use of the outside area will be maximised, and the residents with windows open for ventilation or indeed looking to enjoy their own garden area would be impacted. In determining the application for extended opening hours, an assessment needs to be made on whether or not this disturbance is reasonable or if it would significantly harm local residential amenity. There's policies in the local development plan, namely EP1 and DES1, which seek to require to maintain proposals to maintain reasonable levels of privacy and amenity of occupiers of neighbouring properties, including any impacts on noise caused by noise. In this case, disturbance to the neighbouring properties will not necessarily be increased in terms of noise levels, but the duration of the disturbance will be lengthened by opening on a Monday, which is currently restricted, and an additional 4 hours on a Tuesday and Wednesday evening if the garden area is in use until 9 p.m. The garden area is most likely to be used during the summer months when the weather permits, as we've said. In assessing whether or not the additional potential noise disturbance is likely to result in unacceptable harm to local residential amenity, the views of the Council's Environmental Health Department have been sought. Environmental Health has advised that they are not currently in a position to substantiate a level of noise impact from increasing the opening on Mondays and by an additional 4 hours on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, on which they could base an objection to the proposed modification to the condition. In terms of any future complaints that may be received from neighbouring occupiers, the Environmental Health has the responsibility for investigating complaints of noise nuisance, having regard to the statutory nuisance provisions of the Environmental Protection Act 1990. If unwanted noise creates an unreasonable and substantial interference with the use or enjoyment of a home, Environmental Health Department does have the power to investigate and act on such complaints. However, they are unlikely to be in a position to resolve complaints of noise which can be reasonably expected from the consented cafe bar use of the rear garden, for instance from voices or conversations of the customers. We would note that no formal noise complaints have been received to date. In conclusion, while it is accepted that extending the hours of use of the garden will result in some additional noise, it is not possible to conclude that this disturbance would result in unacceptable harm to residential amenity. Therefore, it is considered that on balance, it would not be reasonable to refuse the application on this basis, given the 9 p.m. limit. There would also be licensing controls to limit the future opening times in the event a justified complaint is received. So we would recommend approval subject to the condition 3 set out in the report, with time limits of 9 p.m. Mondays to Thursdays. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And we have the ward member here. Councillor Wright, you have 4 minutes plus 2 to finish, or I think you've elected to take your 6 minutes, haven't you? Okay, all yours.
Yes, great. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this application. I want to start by being really clear that I'm not here to criticise a valued local business. I'm far from it, but I do want to urge committee members to think about proportionality and respect for residents whose homes are directly affected by this proposal. It's important to recognise that the dugout has brought real life and energy to this part of Abergavenny. The owners have worked hard to build a welcoming, creative venue that contributes to our town's vibrancy. We need small businesses like this, and their success is crucial to Abergavenny's economic well-being. However, this application to relax the restrictions originally imposed on the outdoor area takes us beyond what was originally intended and carefully balanced really quite recently. This is not an isolated request. It follows a previous change to permissions and modifications that have expanded the business's operational scope. First, we had the change of use, which I think was very positive, but then the retrospective outdoor works, and now a request for a further extension of hours. Each change viewed alone may seem modest, but taken together, they could represent a gradual erosion of the safeguards that were put in place to protect residential amenity. The site sits at the heart of a mixed-use area, and planning policy does make it clear that development should not have an unacceptable impact on the living conditions of nearby residents. The reason that these policies exist is precisely because of locations like Lion Street, where commercial and residential uses meet at very close quarters. As members are aware, the reason for the current condition restricting outdoor hours was recognised as being there, I quote, in the interests of amenity and to ensure compliance with LDP policy EP1. I'd like you to reflect on that in particular, please, because I can't see any reason why that condition would now no longer apply because the policy has not changed. When the original permissions were granted, the conditions on outdoor hours were carefully shaped in response to community concerns. They recognised that residents have bedrooms opening directly onto the narrow street and the surrounding courtyards. The evening sound environment that can reasonably be expected here isn't the same as what could be considered acceptable for parts of our town centre and the main street. Extending outdoor hours further will change the experience for residents in a way that is both material and measurable. Abergavenny Town Council considered this application in detail and decided to object, citing those same concerns. They supported the view of environmental health that, while the applicant has operated responsibly, the potential for additional evening noise is real, particularly in the summer months, as we said, when people will be outdoors later. The Town Council was clear that the existing balance is already a product of compromise and retrospective permissions, and so we felt it shouldn't be shifted further without more compelling justification. I'm also a town councillor in Abergavenny, and when we considered this application, we thought that it feels like mission creep, and we're not confident about where this could ultimately end. The business already has good indoor opening hours, and the outdoor space was approved with shorter hours precisely to avoid the cumulative impact of late night activity spilling into what's otherwise a mixed residential environment. There's no evidence that the current conditions are unworkable or economically damaging. They simply reflect the balance that the council and this committee previously struck. We must also be mindful of precedent. If this committee continues to relax agreed restrictions one application at a time, it risks sending a signal that conditions designed to protect amenity might just be temporary. That would undermine public confidence in the planning process and make it much harder to manage future applications in similar mixed-use settings. Again, it's not about being anti-business, but this is about balance. Abergavenny thrives when its residents and its traders can coexist in mutual respect. We want businesses to succeed, but we also want people to feel that their homes can remain a place of quiet and rest. Granting further latitude on outdoor activity at this location would tip the balance too far in one direction. So in conclusion, I'm asking members to support the position of Abergavenny Town Council and refuse this further application. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wright, and you managed that in just over 4 minutes. If you want to sum up at the end, you still got about 1 minute 50 seconds or something. Right, so as Councillor Wright said, the Town Council had expressed some concerns, but we've got nobody here to speak for that. We do have...
Whoops. I am on the Town Council as well, Phil. Maureen.
Councillor Powell, do you want to contribute then?
Well, I was at that meeting when we voted against it there, so should I withdraw from voting, or should I just carry on as I did then? Just want advice.
You can continue. Do you want to contribute on behalf of the Town Council, or wait to contribute as a member of the committee?
I'll wait and contribute as a member of the committee.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just put this thing off. Or do I put myself off?
In that case, we have Karen Hobley, and Karen, you have 4 minutes.
Firstly, thank you for allowing me to voice our concerns about the extended hours for the dugout. We moved to 28 Lion Street 17 years ago after falling in love with the historic Georgian house with secluded walled garden with my eldest son and expect on my eldest daughter. We later had 2 more children, both born at home as planned home births. I'm sure you'll all understand how special our home is to us. The garden was secluded, private and safe, making it a perfect family home. Abacus Nursery on the one side, which all children attended, and Montague Harris on the other, both closed evenings and weekends. When the vendors introduced themselves and came to us with the change of use to a cafe, we welcomed it as a local business. But soon after opening, we could see what was really intended. We were faced with live music, crammed to capacity, and people often smoking and drinking on the street outside. It was obvious from then that they planned to run a pub, not a quiet cafe as they'd sold it to us. Imagine if they'd introduced themselves as wanting to open a pub next door with a beer garden. Do you think we'd have welcomed that? I also refer to, through the planning, is mentioned as a pub and a beer garden throughout. And my question is, has a pub ever opened next door to an adjoining family home before? They soon literally dug out the garden, wooded area, trees, shrubs. Birds were nesting, it was springtime, all wildlife was demolished, not the brambles and weeds that the applicants claimed. Works were carried out by diggers. Please see the green infrastructure and photo of the premise outline, which actually was shown before, where you said there was a large wooded area. That's what was demolished. There was obviously biodiversity and ecosystems. We also have lots of bats. The plan stated no use of the garden, no cutting of trees, and use of only 64 square metres indoors. There is now 364 square metres in use. My question to you is, how were we to know that they would breach this initial application, and how could we foresee what was to come? It wasn't in the planning, and they had no prior consent. There is now in place a raised, extensive patio 5 times the existing, not replace the original as implied. Seaton has extended the full length of the garden for up to 90 people. Site visits yesterday could see this. However, benches had been moved to the back of the garden, and there is marquees which obviously change the view. Are there restrictions on numbers for health and safety, especially with having a dwelling next door? We've let our garden overgrow to give some privacy back, but obviously the rear is open to the public with the cutting down of the trees. Our property is listed, single glazed, and we can hear everything with no escape. It's upsetting and demoralising fighting our cherished home for the past 18 months. It's destroyed peace of mind, our safe place, and driven us away from our family home. We are faced with amplified sound, live music, antisocial noise, language, content, which is wholly inappropriate to our children. We are dreading what's to come. Home should be your safe place, comfort and sanctuary, as I'm sure you'll all agree, not a place of worry, anguish and stress. It's hugely affecting our mental health and children's sleep, especially on school nights. This would be 7 nights a week. Sleep is so important to our health and well-being, as mentioned a lot in the comments for the proposal. My daughter's room is directly above the beer garden. She continues to basically keep a blackout blind covering her window. She doesn't want anyone seeing in. Site visits hopefully looked at this yesterday. No windows are open due to the noise and smoke, not able to study or enjoy her safe space. It's affecting her mental health. We are all suffering as a family. It's heart-wrenching as a mother that I can't protect my children, even in our own home. Our saving grace was the restricted hours in May, and the interest of the
Can you wind up now, please, Karen?
Pardon?
Can you wind up now, please?
Sorry, so yeah, repeating what was said about Hugh Owens enforcing the restricted hours. And there were complaints made, and we had enforcement E25152 where they breached those hours, and that was over a 7-week period where they continued to open at 9 o'clock, and their actual response to me was they were allowed to do what they want after hours because it's their private functions. I leave you with this. Imagine a warm Friday evening, sitting in your garden, enjoying a quiet drink, then having 20, 40, 60, up to 90 people next door. Now imagine this on a Saturday afternoon, a Saturday night, a Sunday afternoon, a Sunday night, and a Thursday night. That's what we have now. Then imagine the same Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every night from 8 a.m. till 9 to 10 p.m, plus clearing time. That's 90 hours a week. We should, as a community, have faith and trust in public bodies that represent everybody to ensure fairness. How can it be fair that our family life and treasured home can be devastated to such an extent that it's no longer our family, our refuge? Sorry to go over.
Okay, thank you very much. And we now have Mr. Duggan, who wishes to respond on behalf of the applicant.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Owen Duggan. I'm the co-owner of the Dugout Cafe Bar on 30 Lion Street. I'm here to request a modest adjustment to our opening hours to bring them in line with other hospitality venues operating within a very short distance. When we first opened, the Dugout was designed to be a community-led space, a place where people could meet friends, attend local events, and feel a part of Abergavenny's social fabric. Since opening, we've built a strong reputation for being a safe, well-managed and welcoming venue that contributes positively to the local area. Over the past year, we've hosted community fundraisers, quiz nights and running club meetups, and we work closely with other independent businesses to promote local trade. We've also invested heavily in staff training, sound management and clear closing time procedures to ensure we operate responsibly and respectfully towards our neighbours. The purpose of this adjustment is simply to align our licensed hours with the rest of the town centre. We have little intention to open until 9 on a Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, but would just like the flexibility to do so. We were hosting a popular local business networking on the first Wednesday of every month, but were made to stop hosting this due to our hours being breached. Importantly, we are not seeking to become a late night bar or music venue. Our focus will remain on being a neighbourhood cafe bar, serving good food, quality drinks and hosting small local gatherings in a well-supervised environment. The proposed extension is moderate. It would simply allow us to serve our existing customers later under the same safe and controlled conditions we already maintain. We currently do not have any antisocial behaviour generated from our business, and we do not want to risk having any, which is why, even with a licence to serve until midnight, we choose to close at 10 p.m. on a Friday and Saturday. We've had no complaints or incidents relating to noise or disturbance since opening. Our neighbours in the flat to the right of the building have been fully supportive and have made the encouraging comments on the application, which I can quote. Both my wife and I work in mental health in the community. We are both deeply aware how vital, inclusive, welcoming spaces are for the well-being of individuals and families. The Dugout plays a genuine role in that. It has provided a positive, supportive space for us personally, has been a key part of our own mental health and well-being, especially during difficult times. The suggestions that the Dugout causes antisocial behaviour, nuisances or excessive noise is completely at odds with our experience, and again, we live right next door. Our main goal of the cafe bar was to aid the town's mental health, and we strongly feel we do make a difference. Through our social running club, community networking, book clubs and so many more, we have been told firsthand by people affected that it does make a difference. We raise money every year for Mind, the charity, and we work closely with other mental health charities throughout the year. The stress from running a small business in the hospitality sector is already high, and the constant worry of breaching these opening hours is massively taking its toll on our own mental health, forcing us to rush people out at 5 p.m. on the dot during the week continues to add to that, not to mention the financial strain it adds, potentially turning away customers. The Dugout plays a genuine role in the continuing to operate a clear noise policy and respectful dispersal procedure. We also have strong relationship with our neighbours to the other side, as well as nearby residents, and encourage feedback directly. They understand that this is a commercial street in the middle of town, opposite the town's main supermarket, which is also open till 10 p.m, as well as the market hall to the rear. There are a lot of pubs, restaurants, takeaways and other cafes that open late within a stone's throw, some of them playing live music much later than us. In short, this adjustment would help level the playing field with other businesses nearby, allow us to sustain our team and expand local employment, and most importantly, continue providing a welcome community space in the evenings, rather than seeing customers move to larger chains, venues or outside the town centre. We are very proud of what the Dugout has become, a small independent business rooted in community, health and connection, and this modest change would ensure we can continue thriving alongside our neighbours. Thank you for considering the request.
Thank you, Ian. That was the end of the speakers for today, Anne. Phil, do you want to come back on any of those points?
Not really. It's probably you've heard different views here of the impact of the proposal. Just to clarify that the works to the garden are authorised under that previous planning permission. The restriction under one of the conditions attached to that is the one in question now, which limited the opening hours. There is an argument that those opening hours were perhaps overly restrictive, and that is why we're presented here with the application to extend them, particularly on the in relation to the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But it's obviously for members to consider the merits of the case and make their own balanced judgment on this. There are pros and cons to this particular issue, just as there are in many before you, and it's a planning balance.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Chair. I listened carefully to what Councillor Wright says, and I agree with her that it is about balance. You know, we need to strike that balance between businesses and also the residential homes, and supporting the independent Monmouthshire businesses. But it does appear to me that there doesn't seem to be any respite for residents, and I thank the local resident who's come in and spoken today. It's very interesting to hear how it has affected her life and those of her family. So 7 days a week from 9 o'clock in the morning until either 9 or 10 o'clock each day seems excessive to me, and it doesn't give those local residents the respite that I feel that they should probably have. I have got some questions if that's okay. So firstly, could we have a little bit more detail about the noise dampening and what impact that could have on the local residents and how well that noise dampening can work? Also, how is this going to be enforced? Could we not have an enforceable need to be cleared by a certain time? There's to be no amplified music.
Sorry,
incident logs.
sorry, Jane. Can you just go back a little bit? You froze.
Oh, sorry. Where did I get to?
Only
start my question.
Only a couple of sentences.
Okay. So yeah, how is it going to be enforced? So could we have an enforceable outdoor area noise management plan that can be conditioned? For example, tables cleared by a certain time, no amplified music, incident logs. Because that would be a concern of mine, because if there has been breaches in the past of conditions, then I wouldn't like to see that happen again. And then also it meant, how many people can go in that space out of the back? Is that going to be restricted? Because obviously the more people you've got out there, the more noise that residents are going to have to put up with. And also I notice in one of the conditions, there's 3 conditions, they don't seem to contain an awful lot of detail. So it says there's no outdoor live music after 8 p.m. But what about music from speakers? You know, is there going to be amplified speaker music coming from them? And I think that is all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Phil, do you want to come back in on that before Councillor Powell?
Yeah, so in terms of noise dampening, there is no noise dampening in the garden. There's a trellis that's been put up under the previous permission, but that's more of a screening measure, visual measure, really. There's no noise dampening proposal under either the previous consent or the current one. So obviously any internal music would be subject to whatever soundproofing has been achieved and glazing has been achieved at the actual premises. But that's not before us. We're only looking at an extension of the hours of the use the garden can be put to. In terms of enforcement, well, we feel those conditions that are set out on page 43 and 44 are enforceable. And we will, you know, obviously the local residents will tell us if there's a breach there. And local residents are very good at informing us, and we will then be in touch with the applicants if that occurs and seek to ensure that breach does not continue via our enforcement staff. The number of customers isn't an issue here. It's got consent to use that as a cafe garden, and the capacity is what it is, given the number of people there. There may be a licensing issue there, but it's certainly not a planning issue. It is a capacity of, given how many benches they've got there, that would be a matter, I would have thought, for licensing, if any, but certainly not a planning issue. And then fire regulations may come into that sort of aspect, particularly internally. And in terms of the music, well, that would cover that condition too. There should be no outdoor live music after 8 p.m. We could amend that to make sure live or recorded music after 8 p.m. If that would assist members in their certainty that would cover all eventualities in terms of live or recorded or amplified music outside. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Phil. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was at the town council meeting when this was turned down there. I think the problem is most hotels and premises like this are in the middle of the town, not so many down the bottom. I know you've got one at the end of the road. I don't know how late that's open, but I think it is difficult when it's next to people. The other businesses in that street, I think there's solicitors or accountants, or they're the sort of businesses along that street, although it is a street of the town. I think possibly it is difficult. In the past, most of I said hotels and restaurants have been up in the town itself, although there is one across the far side of the market hall. But I think perhaps that is the problem, that it's where it's situated rather than anything else. But I think it is difficult if you're living next to something like that to have your peace and quiet. And I do think that we weren't happy with it at the town council, and I'm not happy with it now. Sorry about that. Bye.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. I have spent most of the summer getting complaints from in my ward from a venue that plays extremely loud music, and that is something that is being dealt with. But I suppose I just want to say that from all of these, every weekend I'm getting complaints, and residents are really struggling in a residential area. And I just want to say that I feel uncomfortable with this. If a resident cannot open their blinds, cannot open their windows, has singles, isn't able to put any soundproofing in for themselves. So it's making me feel a bit uncomfortable.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anybody else? Well, Councillor Quinn.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Did you call me? The sound seems to have gone very quiet. I don't know if it's the same with everybody else, but
yes.
Did you call me? I think you did.
You've got your hand up, so.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, the sound is really quiet. I too I feel a little bit uncomfortable about this. I think 9 o'clock on a school night when it's in a residential area is quite late. It's primary school children in particular go to bed, 7:30. But 5 p.m. does seem overly restrictive. So personally, I would have been more comfortable with it if they were asking for an extension till 7 p.m. But 9 p.m. just seems like they have no respite 7 days a week. So yeah, that's just my call on it really, whether we could consider a small extension, but not a blanket 9 p.m., 10 p.m. every night, 7 days a week. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. I'll go back to Phil now because we haven't got, but that's not before us, is it, Phil? So.
Well,
we can hardly hear you. Sorry, Chair.
Sorry, we can't hear anything online.
Can you hear anything now?
We can hear you very faintly. Could someone else try their microphone, see if it's the microphone, please?
Happy to oblige.
You're quiet too, I'm afraid.
Richard's
a little bit better.
Yeah. Richard's working on it. Just bear with us a minute. How's that, Jill or Emma? Yeah.
It's a bit better. It's still quiet, but it's hearable now.
Try again? Yeah, we're just taking it a little bit further. Is that better, Emma?
Oh, yeah, that's better. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, thanks.
Lovely, thank you. Phil, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the proposal before is up till 9 p.m. It's up to members really if they wanted to vote on an amendment to seek a compromise to 7 p.m. That's open to them. There are various options. One, it could be approved as it is. Two, you could be minded to refuse it in its entirety, or and then it would be coming back to the next meeting for reasons of refusal. Or three, you could seek an amendment to the opening hours which you feel are more appropriate. But those are the options, really. Is that what you agree on that, Joe?
Councillor Hells wants to come back in, so Councillor Hells?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a question, just to clarify. So, could you confirm that the proposition is that there'll be no outdoor music after 8 o'clock on any given evening, and that the garden will be out of bounds from 9 o'clock on Sunday to Thursday, and then 10 o'clock on Friday and Saturday? And do we know how that is managed then as well? So could we understand how that is managed? Do people have to be out of the garden by 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever?
Yeah, so in terms of music, there'd be no outdoor live music or recorded music after 8 p.m. on any day. That's outside. It can be later inside. And then in terms of the outdoor use of the premises, so there's a limit Monday to Thursday until 9 p.m, after which it needs to be, people need to go inside or leave the premises. Fridays, it's 10 o'clock as existing. Saturdays 10 o'clock. Sundays 9 p.m. again. And in terms of managing it, yes, they would need to be off the premises, or out of the garden by that time. And we would obviously get complaints if there's a consistent breach of that, and then we can investigate that by monitoring it. Our officers would monitor that then, potentially with environmental health if needed as well. A co-visit.
Thanks, Phil. And that would be through planning enforcement, would it?
Yes. Yeah.
Councillor McKenna.
Thanks for allowing me to come back in, Chair. Just going back to what Phil gave us, the three different options. Could another option be that we take this back to the applicant to amend the hours, because they're the business owner, they're going to know what times they could restrict it to that would best suit them, rather than us deciding it, and just bring it back to us. Because, again, it comes back to balance and compromise, because there just doesn't seem to be any respite at the moment for residents in that area. Thank you.
Is it possible for me to make more comments, or have I used up time?
If you could just clarify that point over the opening hours.
I just wanted to reiterate what I mentioned in my statement about we have no intention to open till 9 o'clock every 7 days a week. There's no trade in that for us. It's purely just to be flexible enough to host the business network and events we host once a month. If we ever had any community-based, like social gatherings, that we can offer that. We don't want to be trading at those hours in the week anyway. It wouldn't be beneficial to us. And in terms of Maureen Powell's comments about the hospitality around us, there's about 4 or 5 pubs and cafes within a stone's throw in that area of town, all opening late. There's the Vaults, the King's Head, the Chapel have a license. They have activity away into past 10 p.m. We all have to listen to it after we've closed, so we have time to get there after we've closed. So it's not just us in that area.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, I've got to be fair to everybody, but very briefly, please.
So based on that, half of the stress for us is that the not knowing, so not knowing how many people are going to be next door. So if they're saying they can be open till 9 p.m. and there could be a huge gathering outside of, I say up to 90 people, that's how many people they can have in there. That is part of the stress. As I think you can imagine that if a huge party comes in and you're trying to get your kids to bed, and this has actually happened and wasn't a very nice situation, but I do get really upset because it's my job to protect my children. They can't say anything. They can complain to me. I'm the one that has to then try and sort the issue out, and I can't cope with trying to resolve something with a next door neighbour.
I think we've got the message. Yeah, thank you. Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Chair. And this is getting quite complex, isn't it? Clearly, there's a.
I think we vote on what we've got. Members can either approve it or not.
Okay.
Because it's
otherwise, we are in danger of formulating. Yeah.
We're going to end up in a real pickle. But
thank you, Chair.
Right. I'm going to draw a line under this now. So, Councillor Wright, you've got about a minute left if you want to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be super brief. All I would say is that when I referred members to, the condition in place to protect residential amenity, I haven't heard anything from members or officers that persuades me that there's any justification for suddenly removing a condition based on planning policy. By why has this changed? I haven't heard any reason why this would suddenly no longer apply. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Do you want to comment on that, Joe? Can you just briefly repeat that last point again?
Shall I read it out as I was? So I said the reason for the condition restricting outdoor hours was recognised as being there, quoting from the report, in the interests of amenity and to ensure compliance with LDP policy EP1. And so I don't see, there's been no change to policy, so why would that not apply now?
Phil?
I don't think there's nothing in the policy that directs it must if 5 p.m. is this sort of magic bullet that says that policy is complied with. I think it's a matter of fact and degree, and we all look at each case on its merits. I think as officers we felt that having dug a bit more below the surface and having consulted with colleagues in environmental health who hadn't offered an objection up in this instance about noise, that it was fair and reasonable to extend those hours. 5 p.m. is a relatively short period for a cafe bar to close out in a mixed use commercial area, so we just felt it was offering the business a bit more scope. And 9 p.m. was a reasonable time in which to come to a compromise, really, while protecting local amenity. But ultimately, it's for members to decide whether they agree with that, or whether the 5 p.m. or another time for that matter is a more appropriate closing time to safeguard amenity.
Okay, we've got several dilemmas here. I think it's going to be cleaner if we vote on what's in front of us. So we either vote for approval or for refusal. Councillor Webb?
You make the proposal that we vote what is in front of us, Chair.
Yeah, I was just going to ask for support for that. So are you prepared to propose that, Councillor Webb?
Yes, I am. To propose approval, thank you.
Well, as I suggested it, I'll second it. So, Richard, can we have the voting function up, please? Okay, can we vote now, please?
So sorry. So there's 7 approved, 7 against. So we go to a casting vote.
I'll vote as I did before, so I voted for approval. Okay, the next one we have is for DM 2021-01700, and that's Phil.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, I'm just getting sorted out.
We've no sound. I've no sound.
Can you hear me, Councillor Bryn?
I hear that.
Oh.
No, but nothing prior.
No, nobody was speaking.
Oh, that's okay. It's because there was a change of pictures. I presume there was meant to be speaking. Thanks.
Okay, let me just check I'm at the right slide here. No, yes, I am. Okay, so this is a site that those who were there yesterday on the site visits were fortunate to visit on a very sunny autumn day. It's an existing development at Wheatfield Close, off the Brook Estate in Monmouth. So it's in a built-up area of the town. So the principle of redevelopment is fine, subject to detailed consideration of the layout, scale, mass, design, and other material considerations. I'll just take you through the slides. So that's the existing layout. There's a block of flats set back off Brook Estate, and Wheatfield Close itself is a little cul-de-sac. There's a 4-storey block towards the rear of a 3-storey block fronting the road, 4-storey block towards the rear with maisonettes in it, which we'll see photos of in a moment, and then a parking area as well. Playground behind, which we saw yesterday in that area there. Existing houses all around of different styles. So that's looking down on the site at the moment. There's a block of maisonettes here, and those are the flats here. They're actually connected here, so there's no actual, there's an L-shaped block. There's no gap in between them at the moment. These are just 2-storey semis here, and then other properties with long gardens to the north, and then properties along here which are just 2-storey in scale as well. That's the proposed layout. There'll be 4 dwellings in a little terrace along the front, brought forward so they mirror, if you like, the street scene further along and opposite, giving it more of a sort of authentic traditional feel in terms of the pattern of development in the area. Then there'd be a gap then between the 2-storey dwellings and this 3-storey block of 1-bedroom apartments at the rear. So 13 residential units in total, and a car parking area with 14 spaces, so 1 per unit plus 1 visitor space, and bin store here and cycle parking here, open space around it, and new tree planting which will be subject to condition, and the SUDS area is going in here to accommodate the SAB consent requirement. Those are the properties at the moment. There's the flats at the front of the site. We came in through the site here and wandered around the back. That's at the back, so you can see there's the link from the flats at the front to the maisonettes at the rear. They're 4-storey at the moment, and then that's looking from the that's an older picture actually, looking from the front when it was a little bit more tidy in those days. Certainly doesn't look like that now. And then that garage block was there. I believe that's been demolished now. Some more photos. That shows the two semis that are next door to the properties that come down here. And that's typical of the dwellings in the area. There's a mix of styles, more modern and older ones as well. That's the property at the front. Certainly doesn't look as healthy as that now, shall we say. And that's the proposed block that would be along the front. So there'd be 4 units in a little terrace. There'd be cream brick, dark grey slate roof tile with PVs in the roof, grey UPVC windows and sort of dark red doors. Headers above windows on the ground floor and doors. That would be the floor plan. So you notice on the side facing that pair of semis here, there'd be no windows along the side elevation. Notice yesterday when we were there, the flats overlooking that pair of semis actually got windows in the side elevation that could actually overlook primarily the gardens of those 2 properties in Brook Estate. Then that's how it would look in terms of the block at the rear as well behind it. So just to compare ridge heights, existing frontage flats have got a ridge height of 9.7, and even with a pitched roof, there would be a 1.5 metre reduction on that to 8.2 metres at the front there. That's existing. And then this would be the replacement. So you'd have the 9 flats going in here. Again, similar palette of materials. There would be some dark grey cladding on the upper floor and dark grey roof tiles with PVs again inset, and band courses of reconstituted stone and some, again, another band course here to add visual interest. Windows at the rear, to note, they're not habitable, so in terms of overlooking, there's less likely to be any loss of privity compared to the existing arrangement, even though they're pushed back slightly and further north, that block than the existing arrangement, they wouldn't have overlooking habitable windows in the rear. So just to confirm that, so you'd have kitchen window there, toilet which would be obscure glazed, and then these are circulation spaces, so they wouldn't, certainly not habitable windows in that instance. They're all looking out the other way over the car park. The ridge height would be similar, but bearing in mind this has got a pitched roof, so that's where the height similarity comes in, but it would actually recede as a pitched roof compared to the mass of a 4-storey flat roof which is there at the moment. That's a summary of it. I think that's it. In terms of redevelopment of the site, as I said, it's in the development boundary. It's certainly acceptable in principle. The existing flats were built in the 60s and 70s. They require significant investment to meet current energy efficiency and quality standards. They've been vacant for over 5 years. You can see they're getting increasingly dilapidated. There is a demand in the area, MH are aware, for 1-bedroom flats and houses particularly, also 2-bedroom houses and 3-bedroom houses. So accordingly the proposal seeks to demolish those blocks and replace them with a scheme that better reflects local housing need and provides accommodation that meets modern living standards. This was delayed, this application, due to the phosphorus pollution issues, and it got held up since 2021. But during that time, the MHA took the opportunity to revise the design of this scheme and come in with something that they felt better reflected housing need, and that's the scheme that's now before members. The proposed development will feature said cream-coloured brick elevations, and while some neighbouring residents have raised concerns that the proposed finish may not reflect the character of Brook Estate, where red brick and rendered finishes are more common, it's evident that the area exhibits a diverse range of housing styles and finishes. And the area comprises a variety of housing types, as we've seen in the pictures and saw yesterday, including dormer bungalows, 2-storey detached and semi-detached houses, terraced houses, blocks of flats and townhouses. External finishes vary, including brickwork, render and cladding, and there would be no sound basis to object to the design and appearance of the proposed units, especially having regard to the existing scale, mass and appearance of the units to be replaced. The proposed building line would be positioned closer to Brook Estate, the road, than the existing block of flats, but that would add, if you like, a level of better urban design in terms of the impact of this development to the street pattern, and provides an appropriate response compared to the flats, which are set back quite significantly. So we feel that the choice of external materials are considered appropriate in this context. The scale and mass of the development is broadly comparable to the existing flats, and there would be actually a betterment in many ways, as said, with the houses not overlooking the neighbouring properties on Brook Estates compared to the existing flats which have windows in the side elevation. The proposed development will follow broadly the L-shaped layout, and there would be a reduction in the overall mass of the buildings on the front, so all positive change in that respect. In terms of impacts on privacy and overshadowing, the blocks will occupy a larger overall footprint. Their height does remain comparable to the existing dwellings, and in fact is lower, as we've said, in the frontage. The replacement 3-storey block to the rear will be located 2.5 metres close to the site boundary, but it's also 2.2 metres further away from number 36 Brook Estate, which is the nearest property to those new units. And while these spatial changes result in both gains and losses, the overall impact is considered positive and acceptable. And importantly, the revised layout creates a significantly wider separation between the two blocks on the site, offering more open outlook and reducing the sense of enclosure for neighbouring residents. There's no objection from environmental health, subject to a construction environmental management plan, and the plan will outline measures to mitigate noise, vibration and dust during the site preparation and construction, addressing concerns raised by neighbouring residents. Accordingly, the proposal is considered to comply with LDP policies DES1 and EP1. In terms of transport, parking, etc., the existing site accommodates 14 residential units, whereas the proposed scheme comprises 13. The site is well located, offering reasonable walking and cycling links to key destinations and amenities in Monmouth. It's also served by local bus routes. It provides access. The centre provides access to a good range of retail, educational, and service facilities. And the site is considered to be in a sustainable location, reducing reliance on private vehicles, as supported by Planning Policy Wales. In terms of parking, currently the site did include 5 garages. They've now been taken down, and an open unmarked parking and turning area. The proposed scheme would provide 14 designated on-site parking spaces, one of which is for visitors, offering an improved management of parking provision. This is considered a betterment compared to the existing unmanaged arrangement and is acceptable in planning terms. The Council's biodiversity officer has noted that there's a loss of amenity grassland on site, but that can be mitigated through hedge and tree planting within the remaining amenity areas. To ensure net biodiversity gain, features such as bird boxes will be required, and while it's preferable for ecological enhancements to be agreed prior to determination, officers consider that the current layout provides sufficient scope for such features, and a pre-commencement condition is therefore considered appropriate to secure those. There's a standard landscaping condition to require details prior to commencement. This will help us review the type and location of proposed planting, as some neighbours have raised concerns regarding tree planting near boundaries, which might have the potential impact of causing disturbance to garden structures on adjoining land, but we can weigh that up when considering any detailed planting scheme. The site will not flood and has been subject to a flood consequences assessment. However, the council's SAB team identified a part of the site in the southwestern corner where some surface water, not river water, some surface water flooding might occur in an extreme event. And as such, a condition is recommended to agree finished floor levels of the residential units so that development is not at risk, and should be a minimum of 20.2 metres AOD, possibly higher in that aforementioned southwestern area to make sure it's not subject to surface water flooding in that extreme event. And thus the scheme as submitted is acceptable from a flood perspective, subject to conditions. Foul water would connect to the public sewer, regarding which Welsh Water has raised no objection, and MHA have indicated that the surface water would connect to a private water sewer which discharges into what appears to be a culverted water course about 40 metres to the east of the site. The SAB team have no objection to the proposed discharge destination, and the scheme will require a formal SAB consent before works could commence. A construction environmental management plan is required to outline the steps and procedures that will be implemented to minimise noise, vibration and dust during the site construction phases, and that's conditioned accordingly. There's also a condition about external lighting, which was a concern in previous application we discussed earlier. In terms of the renewables, there'll be installation of solar panels and air source heat pumps for the units in accordance with policy SD1 of the LDP. So we'd like to commend this scheme to you. We'd recommend approval of this scheme, which will make a significant improvement to this site in Monmouth, subject to the suite of conditions set out in pages 16 to 18 and a Section 106 agreement to secure the housing as affordable in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And got nobody registered to speak, so Councillor Eason.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is a positive development as far as I'm concerned. It's an MHA job. Within my ward, over the last number of years, developments with MHA have turned out to be very good. All the conditions you put on there, Phil, I'm sure that the developers will stick by them. We need affordable, good housing. As I say, within my ward, I think there's 60 or 70 being built. The only problem area left is the ones they can't knock down. So the quicker we can get rid of these 60-year-old buildings and put them up with modern ones, which I think this proposal will give us, I think is important. And when you finish discussing it, I would support it, quite frankly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tony. I'll take that as a recommendation for approval then. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks as well for the officer's report. I came across this building a couple of years ago, contacted the ward member councillor, maybe, and we contacted MHA, and we were very quickly received a response. They explained the reasons for the delay and that there were plans to be put forward, and I'm really delighted to see them coming forward before us today. I think this is an exciting development. It's going to help Monmouth. We've not had much development in the last recent years. We've got a housing crisis. We've got people that have decent jobs but can't afford to rent or live in Monmouth. So this is going to be a great asset to the community. I note the comments about residents about the design, but it's quite a mixed area in that particular section of that neighbourhood. I think that the properties look great. I think it's going to improve the outlook as well for those residents in the parallel block of buildings, because there's not going to be an external walkway to those maisonettes as there was before. It's going to be all internal access. So I think it's an exciting plan, really well designed by MHA. Glad that after the time this has been empty and not being used, that it is going to come into use again. We're going to get affordable housing for residents in Monmouth. So I've thoroughly endorsed this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. And Councillor Bond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, officers. Brilliant. I commend the use of this land to provide the much needed housing and obviously the sustainability qualities of this plan is commendable too. There was two things we noticed yesterday, prompted by Councillor Bryn. It was about the storage of the bicycles to encouraging people to, because there's so many flats, encouraging people to cycle. Maybe it could be checked that there's enough room for each flat to have two bicycles stored, because obviously it's not easy to take a bicycle up to a flat. And also the access, if they could find a way to get access to the park that's directly behind the site. There was some conversation about whether maintaining security, but I'm sure there's a way that you can find a lockable door, a gate or whatever to make that happen. So wondered if those could be considered, please. And also, because as it was discussed yesterday, but also, can you comment further on the response that was made about the appearance and the fact that appearance making people think that it's social housing, and that why and how that's, I mean, it doesn't appear that way to me, and I think you've said some already, Phil, about it, but there's been a statement, isn't it, that it looks like social housing. So I wonder what your thoughts are about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. And we did have a look on Google and Google Earth, and it's literally just 50 yards around the corner and you're in that park. I'll bring Phil back in on the other stuff.
Yeah, sure. And the bike store, Welsh Government requirements are that there's one bike space per dwelling unit. So MHA are fully intent on providing that standard. We could condition that the bike store details are submitted, and then we can ensure that, one, it's designed in a visually appropriate manner, and two, we can see if there's any scope to increase the number of maybe bike spaces potentially. So we're happy to do that. We can add a condition to secure the external bike stores are submitted to and agreed by us before works commence.
Thank you.
In terms of the access to the park, yeah, I think there was some comment from the MHA representative there yesterday about they've got to achieve, to obtain Welsh Government funding, they need to obtain secure by design from the police authority, and it's notoriously difficult to get that if there are sort of routes through the development which other members of the public can actually use to get through to next door to the park. We could ask them to look at it, but I don't think it would be a reason to defer or withdraw not support the application on that basis, especially as the chair has just said. We looked at that earlier, and they can literally turn left as they come out of the development, turn left again, and they're within a 2-minute walk. They're at the park. So
okay.
I think really it's only a hop, skip, and a jump really to the play area in any case from this redevelopment. And in terms of the appearance, well, I think it's actually a nice design. It'll actually look really really good 21st century modern affordable housing design. It will look different to the rest because it looks so new. It doesn't mean to say it's bad. It just looks somewhat different. It's using more modern materials. Some of them will have the flats will have cladding on them. Hasten to say they'll be fire resistant, but that will be a building control matter. But they will have an appearance of themselves. They will respect the pattern of development in the area, and I think they will stand the test of time. They'll look really good, and I certainly wouldn't want to criticise a scheme on design and appearance factors. So I certainly endorse the design to the members. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think with the yellow brick and the black roof, it'll look a lot better than the actual plans before us suggest. It looks a bit dour on there.
And if members are minded to approve it, we can certainly go and have a look at it when it is built. So as part of one of our annual design tours.
Yeah, well, we're in the process of looking at that now anyway, aren't we? Right, Councillor McKenna and then Councillor Howells. Sorry, Councillor Webbs first. Yeah, sorry.
No worries. An excellent scheme. I mean, MHA have had a long time to look at it. It's been vacant for quite a while, five years. Fully appreciate all that's involved here, and it's a big scheme. Thank you. Can you just please remind me, Phil, of the construction hours working conditions, please, bearing in mind this is a highly residential area. Can you just repeat those, please, for me? Thank you.
Yeah, there are no conditions, Councillor. There are no hours set out in the condition. They're to be agreed, Councillor Webb. But normally we consult with environmental health to make sure that they're happy with what's reasonable. You'd normally have. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. What are we looking at on other construction sites, Andrew? From your enforcement hat knowledge, it's about 8 a.m. is it, or 7:30 a.m. till about
8 normally.
Yeah,
and then Saturday mornings only. But in terms of, I appreciate this is a quite a densely sort of populated residential area, as a redevelopment rather than a housing site on the edge of a settlement. So the detail, as Phil has said, will come through in the condition. We'll consult with highways, with environmental health, and those will be duly considered based on the context of the site, which we do acknowledge is surrounded by residential properties. But yeah.
Could I come back, Chair? Could the delegated panel look at this? Because I think it should be bank holidays, Christmas Day, Remembrance Sunday should be respected, and the Armistice Day, things like that. Could it be possible to come back to delegated panel, or not? Chair, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, we can. Just to say that Remembrance Sundays are Sundays. There wouldn't be any Sunday working on a Sunday. But
in particular for Remembrance Day, Armistice Day.
And there'd be no working normally on bank holidays either. So that would be part of a standard agreement within a construction management plan. But it's up to the members if they want it to be overseen by delegation panel.
Okay, I bow to your recommendation.
Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Phil, for the presentation. Certainly what is being proposed today is going to be an improvement on what is already there, and provide much needed accommodation for the town of Monmouth. So if approved today, it's going to be a very positive step forward for the town. Just one thing I noticed in the report, it says that highways have requested a full sustainability assessment to justify the reduced parking provision, but it's not considered to be reasonably required in this instance. I was just wondering, therefore, what is the policy, or can we be reminded of the policy when it comes to, we've got 4 2-bed houses and 9 1-bed flats. What is the policy provision normally? And granted, I get that we're trying to encourage active travel and things like that, and there may be people who don't have cars. But you may have people in the houses who do have 2 cars. So in that instance, do we know at this stage how Monmouthshire Housing Association would allocate those spaces? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, well, we can't really get into MHA's letting policies, but historically we know that housing association tenants have a lower rate of car ownership. There's empirical evidence of that throughout all of our sites across the county. So we take that on board when we consider these sorts of developments. In terms of a sustainability appraisal, the highways asked for it because the parking area is shy of what's in the current parking guidelines. But I think if you look at the direction of travel in Planning Policy Wales, it's really to allow developments in towns like this and other more sustainable settlements is to actually lower the car ownership, the car parking provision on sites, because we should be encouraging more sustainable forms of travel. There's a bus stop right outside the road. You can walk into town from here, and they've still got provision for a space each on site and a visitor space. So we've taken a view as planning officers that this is a sustainable location. You wouldn't push the developer to have to evidence sustainability in this particular instance. We should be accepting that the site can provide a reasonable level of off-street parking in this location. Plus, we know historically that housing association tenants have a lower rate of car ownership. So I think we can be confident that this provision will work on site without leading to further on-street parking stress in the area, which is already under stress at the moment, particularly as the existing development had a much poorer provision of off-street parking than the current proposal. So it's a very much an unbalance. There's no set way of looking at this. Highways asked for the sustainability appraisal based on the lack of compliance with the current parking guidelines. But I know that when we revisit these for the replacement plan, the supplementary planning guidance will look to reduce that level of parking. I don't know whether you've got anything to add on that, Andrew. But.
Yeah, thanks. I think the main thing is we've got current supplementary planning guidance on parking, which is figures we've quoted a number of times. 1 parking space per bed, maximum of 3, etc. I think the issue to consider is that the age of that policy and the more up-to-date Planning Policy Wales, which sets out a clear sustainable transport hierarchy, and as Phil has said, there is a clear advocacy towards a modal shift by encouraging people to use more sustainable means of transport. So I think it's that balance and that judgment assessment as officers we feel. We note what our, say, more older SPG says on parking standards, but the appropriate weight is given to later, more modern policy at a national level, which does sit above us in terms of the national policy hierarchy. So I think, and for all the reasons Phil's given in terms of the location, its proximity to town, etc., there's very clear policy grounds on which to accept a lower parking provision, and that the provision of a sort of study to justify that isn't reasonable or necessary in this instance. So hopefully that just clarifies and reaffirms some of the points Phil's made.
Councillor Howells.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Phil. Similar to Councillor Webb, I was going to raise the Construction Environmental Management Plan, but that's already been covered. It was noted yesterday that the development sees a reduction from 14 units with 39 bedrooms to 13 units with 17 bedrooms, with a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms that is identified as a need in the area. This is, of course, a difference of 1 unit, but a reduction of 22 bedrooms. This is surprising that an area of this size was originally passed for approval when it was built in the 60s and 70s. I don't think it would be today. If you look at the parking spaces, I see there's 4 garages there and 6 parking spaces there. So 10 parking spaces for 39 bedrooms, whereas a new development provides 14 spaces for 13 units or 17 bedrooms, along with secure bike parking. I hope this goes to address those comments online that the development will create extra traffic, but as can be seen, this is going to reduce that by a significant amount. That is just an observation, really. I think I'm very for this development, so I would be voting in approval for it.
Councillor Easton.
Yeah, just a quick one, Chair. Regarding parking, on the 3 developments in my ward, adequate parking has been provided. And if you look at the older properties, there's no parking whatsoever other than on the street. So I think this is an exciting project, and it needs our support because of those reasons. You talk about sustainability of buildings and what they look like. The 3 in my ward, I tell you what, they are really up to scratch. Phil knows them, and I think that we've got to support these developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Easton. Councillor Pinn.
Hi. Diolch yn fawr. I'm excited to see the redevelopment on this such a sustainable location. Not many sites can boast their own bus stop. And it's walking, as everyone said, it's walking and cycling distance into town, and I appreciate, sad as I was to see the reduction of density on such a sustainable site. I do appreciate why that is necessary in this instance. I just wanted to ask, as the expectation is that residents will use more sustainable travel options, is there any option to improve the bus stop that is pretty much on site with the installation of a bench, say, for instance, just to improve the bus stop? Diolch yn fawr.
Phil?
Well, I suppose we need to balance things. The whole point of this application is 100% affordable, so we don't want to be asking something which could be provided anyway by the council, really, beyond this application. So I don't know.
Refer it to Christian Smith, see what he says.
Yeah, I was going to say, to improve that sort of improvement would require to be delivered through a Section 106 agreement, and that would need to be sort of reasonably justified in terms of meeting the tests for Section 106 agreement. And I think having regard to, say this is a 100% affordable scheme, is that improvement necessary to make the development acceptable amongst all the other Section 106 tests? I think our advice as officers, that wouldn't be, that sort of contribution wouldn't be required to make the development acceptable. So whilst noted, and say the council itself has a responsibility to, with regards to the bus stop and its facilities, I don't think it'd be reasonable to request a scheme that is providing 100% affordable of that scale to also then provide that works, which I think we say would be difficult to evidence it was required to make this acceptable in planning terms. So I think noted, but for those reasons wouldn't suggest that or advocate that that's something would be appropriate to pursue.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Well, we've got a proposal to approve before us. Councillor Eason and Councillor Dale Brooke has seconded it. So, Richard. Yes, yes, please. Okay, vote now, please. I don't think it's going to matter too much, Tony.
It's been approved.
Okay, we've got an appeal to have a look at now. I think we've seen this before, Andrew.
Yeah, just wait for the slides. Apologies, members. I believe we have actually shared this. I think it might have been the August committee. So apologies for including it again. That's human error, I'm afraid, on our part. So it's rather than there's been a change or there's been sort of subsequent movement post decision. But this was the I believe this was the extension to the listed barn, wasn't it? Phil? Yeah. So I won't go through that one again. Again, apologies for bringing it to your attention again. This was the appeal of notes, and it is quite an interesting appeal that's fresh since we last met. Was this an application for a single turbine? I think it was approximately 150 metres high to its tip at the within the Gwent Levels triple SI. So we had refused planning permission on the basis there's quite as we had taken it, quite a clear sort of national planning policy position on development in the triple SI, and where development is not necessary for the management of the triple SI, which we had felt that this wasn't. However, the inspector, as you probably read in quite a lengthy report, has balanced that and gone through the stepwise approach in that consideration of balancing it with the need for renewable energies. And the inspector, he's taken quite a lengthy discussion through that in terms of how they've arrived at that decision. It is a lengthy one. I would, if members are minded to sort of provide and have a read of a very clear summary, paragraphs 47 to 49 of that appeal decision provide quite a more succinct sort of wrap up of the balance that the inspector has arrived at. In terms of why they felt planning permission should be granted, and that the renewable and the need to provide renewable energy was wholly exceptional in their view to justify development in the triple SI. So it's one to digest in terms of that the issue of development where it's wholly exceptional and where it would be justified in the SSI. So that's one certainly as officers will be reviewing in detail. There's quite a lengthy suite of conditions attached to it. But I think that's the key takeaway is how the inspector has arrived at that planning balance, and we often talk about that balance in our discussions around the developments that we consider, balancing the need in terms of the SSI with that of our sort of national climate emergency and the need to meet national sort of carbon standards and targets. So yeah, but if members haven't had a chance to read through it, I'd certainly point you in the direction of the latter paragraphs 47 to 49, which bring it all to a close and how that weighting was arrived at to ultimately approve subject to quite lengthy conditions.
Right, thanks very much, Andrew. That brings us to the end of the agenda, so thank you everybody. See you next time.